Hi, welcome to today's questions and response. And today I have a question which actually was one that a client asked in a session, but which I felt was really worth bringing to this space here. And this particular client has had a very challenging experience in life. In fact, I've realized lots of my clients have had very challenging experiences of life in various different ways. Yeah, who knows why that seems to be the experience of those who come into my world, but it does. And so this particular client is one of those who's had a very challenging experience and continues to have a challenging experience. And so her question was, well, why has this happened to me? Why do these things happen to us? Why is this the life that I got? And in the moment, what looked the most obvious thing to share was the fact that we don't know. It seems to me that if we're going to be 100% truthful and honest, the answer as to why something has happened is, I don't know. All we know is that it has. That's all we can really know for sure. And in some ways, that can be incredibly settling because there's nowhere for a mind to go with that. The why question is very much a question of the mind. If I could just find an answer to this, then I'd be okay. If I could just understand this, then I'd be okay. If I could just know this for sure, for certain, then I'd be okay. And there's really no response to a why question of the mind that would satisfy it. Not when it's coming from that confusion of thinking that an answer to its question will bring lasting satisfaction and peace, because it won't. In a temporary moment, if you were to say to the mind, oh, it's happened because of X, Y, and Z, then temporarily it will go quiet because it'll think, oh, good, now I know. But then very soon it'll start up again and it will look for something else to solve. It will look for something else to find an answer to. And if you're identified with the mind getting right answers, then you'll just feel unsettled again. You'll just feel disrupted again. But it seems that with time, as we come to rest more as ourself and be less identified with the ideas of a mind, to be less identified with the need to know and be right and have certainty, because we're now no longer looking for good feelings in that answer. We are the good feelings. And so we're no longer seeking to feel better through my question being answered. And it seems like that opens the capacity for an enlightenment angled conversation, which then allows us to see a purpose. This is not an absolute, definite, right, 100% true answer, but one purpose of the life that we've lived is for us to have learned certain lessons, to have certain experiences, and potentially to move all the way through that into the recognition that what we were learning was the remembrance of ourself. So if I take an example, and I'll use one of my own. So as for most of us, we've had experiences in childhood that led us to feel abandoned. So there was an experience in my childhood where I felt abandoned, I felt let down, I felt desperately hurt by people who I thought should be keeping me safe. And I closed in at that point. I went inward, I went quiet, zero entry point for anybody or anything. And of course, with time, I came back out, but there was a level of that contraction that was kind of held around my heart as protection. An idea of protection, at least. The idea that, well, I don't want to feel like that again. I don't want to feel abandoned like that again. So I'm going to keep this protection around me and just not let people in as close as I had done before that. I'm not going to build the level of connection that I had before that. Because look what happens. People leave you, people abandon you, people let you down. So I'll now protect myself from that by just not getting close in the first place. And then when they leave, when they abandon me, because people do leave all the time, then I won't be so hurt because I won't have become so deeply connected. And of all the people I speak to, I would say that everybody has some version of this. Check for yourself if this resonates with your experience. So then that led to a life of less connection, less deep relationships, more protection, less open to receiving, more outward and doing and keeping myself busy, because then I won't have to look at this hurt, at this fear. I'll just keep doing and doing and doing, and superficial relationships will be good enough. And then there comes a point when it's not working, when the system says, no, this isn't good enough. This isn't what we're here for. This isn't the fullness of life that we're here for. And that's what begun me. Is that the right use of that word, begun? That's what started me on this path, on this exploration. To remember the truth of who I am and to see through the confusion of the protections that had been collected over the years, beginning with that, well, from memory anyway, that significant moment of contraction and withdrawal and protection being put up. And so through that process of my life, I have had the experience of contraction and limitation. I've had the experience of relationship from that space, the inverted commas negative impact on relationship of coming from that space. I've learned the movement through that. I've learned the the process of questioning whether it's true. I've had the opportunity to unravel and unravel and unravel the layers of protection that had been collected around that seed idea that it's not safe to be in close relationship. And then with that unraveling, it's the greater dropping and dropping and dropping of the veils of confusion and the veils of protection, which were never really protecting anything. They don't actually keep you safe. They just keep you limited and at a distance from life. And so as they drop and they drop and they drop and we disidentify from them and we see that they're not true, then we feel deeper and deeper into the feeling of ourself, deeper and deeper into the remembering of that being the space of love that we'd always felt when we were in connection with another. It's always been the feeling of ourself. And so through this arc of the journey of life, as we go from the full love and expression of ourself through experiences, particularly in childhood, and contractions coming and protections being collected by the mind, living a life in some form of limitation or other, and then ultimately coming through that back into the remembrance of ourself, back into those beautiful feelings, having learnt so many lessons along the way about what impact it has, how it feels, and how we move through the other side of that back into that remembrance. And that contraction in itself is the teacher. It is the mechanism that brings enough suffering until ultimately we get to that point where we're like, I'm done. No, there must be something else. There must be something else available. I know that there's a more reliable, consistent, peaceful, loving, contented experience than this. Where is that? And that's the kind of question that so brilliantly leads us into this exploration, and which would not be available unless we had lived in contraction and limitation and suffering. So why is this happening to you? In 100% truth, we don't know. From a human understanding perspective, it is the perfect way for you, in your experience, to learn some lessons, to experience disconnection from yourself, to experience that normal human evolution through that disconnection, to try and re-find that connection in the outside world, until ultimately you come back into remembrance that you were always looking for yourself. You were always right here. And it was purely through the collection of those contracted protections that had you lose sight of that and lose the feeling of that. And that's the best I can find. So when it comes to answering why this has happened to you, 100% truth, I don't know. Secondary truth, it provides you the contraction to begin the exploration back home. It provides you the contraction to learn lessons of how it feels to be in that contracted state. And that's the best I've got. How does it sound to you?